Hello and welcome. In today's episode on Political Journalism Part 2, we shall be talking in detail about legislative reporting or reporting the proceedings in the House of Parliament and the legislative assemblies. Helping you along is our subject expert Shikha Gandhi and I am Sakshi Mandwal. But before we tell you what is on the menu for today, let's take a few minutes to recap all that we learned in Part 1 of the program on political journalism. We had discussed the skill set required for covering elections, planning the coverage, researching and reporting various events connected with elections like interviewing politicians, covering party meetings, speeches and rallies, and reporting on opinion and exit polls. In today's episode, we will discuss in detail how the Parliament works and the way you can report on the proceedings in the House. And since reporting requires gathering facts and then writing them down in form of a report, we shall be telling you just how to write a well-rounded story on political issues, the elections and Parliament. At the completion of this program, you should be able to understand the protocol for covering the legislative assemblies and houses of Parliament, have basic professional skills for covering Parliament, be able to write a political story covering elections and the legislatures in a clear, fair and non-partisan manner. Legislative journalism is a sub-genre of political journalism, which focuses on covering events taking place inside the Houses of Parliament and state legislatures. It is sometimes also called parliamentary reporting. Actually, the word parliament comes from parlement, a word in French meaning a conversation or a talking. In fact, Parliament has been used for more than 800 years to describe gatherings to talk about affairs of the state. Parliament, therefore, is all about words, arguments and debate. And similarly, parliamentary reporting simply put involves the day-to-day reporting of Parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and the state legislatures, Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad. This task includes covering the different activities of the legislatures, including the complex process of lawmaking and debates on subjects of public importance. This media reportage on the legislative proceedings is extremely useful as it helps the common man learn about the development and discussions held in these august houses where people do not have easy access. But that's not all. A parliamentary reporter exposes the common man to a wide range of well-articulated views and he or she develops more imaginative and creative ways to grab eyeballs so that people can take greater interest in this principal democratic forum. The reportage also helps create an open dialogue. My friends, let's take a close look at some of the other important functions of a parliamentary reporter. A. The parliamentary reporter has the special responsibility of reporting parliamentary debates to the public. B. He or she reports on the working of Parliament. This means that a reporter covers the laws being passed or modified in Parliament. In most parliamentary systems, the executive needs support of Parliament to stay in power. A vote of no confidence in the government will usually cause it to fall. Parliament is also an important stage for the testing of arguments. And like any stage, it can throw up moments of great drama. The parliamentary reporter witnesses, summarizes and reflects all of this to the public. And if, for whatever reason, Parliament becomes important, it is just as important to report that. Normally, an experienced journalist is sent to cover any such procedures, but like any specialized form of reporting, legislative reporting can also be learnt. Let's now get into the nitty-gritty of parliamentary reportage. If you are a parliamentary reporter, you are expected to record the proceedings of the House from the commencement to the adjournment of the House for the day. And it doesn't end at that. You should provide balanced coverage of public policy debates without trivializing or denigrating the parliamentary and governmental decision-making processes. As you gain confidence and knowledge, you are expected to criticize policies, policymakers, and the effectiveness of the democratic process. Reporting on Parliament is a highly specialized, knowledge-intensive job carried out under great pressure and strict deadlines. Apart from this, there is a long list of information about the structure of the Parliament and the protocol that you need to know and understand while reporting. We now give you some pointers about the things that you must absolutely know in order to begin with. To be able to report parliamentary proceedings competently, an understanding of the basic structure of Parliament or a state legislature is imperative. The Constitution of India provides for a bicameral Parliament consisting of the President and the two houses, Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Almost each one of us knows this, but you should also know the rules and procedures of the legislatures, which are by and large the same for both Parliament and the state legislatures. It is also essential for you to know the rights, privileges, immunities and amenities bestowed on members of both the Houses of Parliament. Legislative business forms another very important component of your work. You must therefore be conversant with how the legislature passes a bill and provisions for passing a money bill to be more effective as a reporter. You should know the significance of the question hour and 0 hour, and also have a fairly good idea of how different bills and motions are processed in the Parliament or state legislatures. We shall be talking in detail about some of these essentials of parliamentary proceedings in the coming section. As a parliamentary reporter, these are some important proceedings that you will have to cover. The first hour of every legislative sitting is devoted to questions. If you are covering Parliament in this session, you must take care about the question hour, which is one of the most interesting features of the business conducted by Parliament. But recording the proceedings of this tests the competence of even the most experienced reporter, as questions asked in the question hour relate to a wide variety of subjects, and their range and scope have virtually no bounds. The questions asked during the question hour are of three types. Start questions. This question is one to which the member desires an oral answer in the House. Unstart question is one which oral answer is not required and a written answer can be laid on the table of the House. Short notice questions. This question relates to a matter of urgent public importance. The government is put on trial during the question hour, and it's no wonder that seasoned parliamentary reporters are assigned this job. So, you should be alert when a minister answers or tries to answer probing questions by members on matters of national importance. This is when shorthand comes into play. A reporter with shorthand can write down the minister's reply fast and can file his report as soon as the question hour is over, while others have to wait to lay their hands on the official reporter's notes before filing their reports. But experienced journalists develop their own system for recording the debate and discussions and have been found to be accurate. You would also be able to do it with practice. As answers are given in quick succession, reporters have to be able to identify the members asking the questions and the ministers giving the answers as well. How do you find stories while covering the question hour? You have stories in the answers to start questions and in unstart questions as well. For example, a few years ago, the government's signing of an agreement with Britain for the purchase of the aircraft carrier Hermes at a cost of $63 million was found in a written answer during the question hour, and thus a story was filed. This follows directly after the papers are laid on the table of the House. This is the time when members spring to their feet and draw the attention of the chair that they think are important. This is another time when a reporter has to be very alert for finding a story. Remember, the House is the custodian of its own privilege and is empowered to take action against a reporter if his conduct or writing is in breach of its privileges. A journalist may breach privileges of Parliament in a large number of ways. A journalist does not commit any breach of privileges if he publishes substantially true reports of the House. But if the reporting of events has been done with malice, the protection conferred by Article 361 doesn't apply. Examples of breach of privilege include the publication of expunged portions of the proceedings of the House or publication of those proceedings which are held in camera. Deliberate distortion of speeches, aspersions cast on a member's behavior in the House, and imputation of motive to a member for a speech or behavior in the House constitutes serious transgression of the privileges of the members. A journalist can also breach the privilege of the House by publishing comments and statements that undermine the dignity of the House or the confidence of the public in the legislatures. Reporters are generally issued an accreditation card to cover the proceedings of the Parliament from the press gallery. The accreditation card can be withdrawn by the Speaker if the journalist is found to be breaching the privileges of the House. So, a reporter must study parliamentary privileges and Article 361A of the Constitution of India to safeguard himself against any default that may occur in reporting proceedings of a legislature. An important instance when the newspaper and legislatures locked horns was in 1961 in the Blitz case. The editor, R.K. Karanjia, was reprimanded by the House for his derogatory criticism of Lok Sabha member J.B. Kripalani. This was the first time after the independence when a well-known editor was called to the bar of the House and reprimanded. What is perhaps interesting is the fact that before appearing before the House, Karanjia tried to seek Supreme Court help but failed. Now, let us look at another important topic. How do you, as a parliamentary reporter, find issues to report on? We tell you more about the sources of news on the beat. Number 1. A political reporter gets some of the best stories when the houses are in session. When Parliament and state legislatures are in session, the government makes all the major announcements in Parliament. Political news also comes from in and around the House in session as political parties express their views on various issues. Apart from this, while covering the House in session, you should keep an eye for all the papers laid on the table of the Houses. Replies to starred and unstarred questions may also give a clue to some big story of national importance. In fact, almost every day a reporter may get loads of official documents from the Secretariat of the House he is covering. 2. Another big source of news for you as a legislative reporter is the various committees which handle a large chunk of the legislature's business. For a reporter, it is always advisable to know the functions and composition of these committees. These committees and their reports are also a source of various types of information necessary for covering the political beat. Parliamentary committees. Parliamentary committees play an important role in keeping a check on government expenditure, so it is important for a journalist on the beat to keep track of the reports that they submit and tasks that they are entrusted with by the House. The reports and functioning of these committees make excellent news. It is therefore important for a political reporter to know the composition and the discussion amongst the members of these committees as well. Political reporters have therefore to be on a constant lookout to go for stories that tell about the important decisions taken or not taken by the elected representatives. The reporter can access verbatim report on the proceeding of the House. This report is an important document which gives a report of questions, adjournment motions, bills and resolutions passed. As a matter of fact, they are a rich source of contemporary history. They provide detailed information on all matters touching the life of a citizen and bring to light the political, economic and social conditions of even the remotest parts of the country. Besides, they serve as a mirror of the hopes and aspirations, concerns and apprehensions of the nation as voiced by its elected representatives. The verbatim report entitled Lok Sabha Debates is issued in two parts. Part 1 contains questions and answers and Part 2 contains the rest of the proceedings. The printed version is available about 2 months after the date of the sitting. Its copies can be had from the sales section of the Lok Sabha Secretariat or from the authorized agents for the government publications on payment. And needless to say, these are sources for a lot of story ideas. Now, these are also available online on the sites of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. A legislative or parliamentary reporter usually notes down what is being discussed and debated inside the House and then transcribes the notes for filing a story. This demands utmost concentration and intellectual efforts. Needless to say, stamina, mental alertness and quick reflexes are the primary needs required for covering situations like the ones which usually prevail in the House. It goes without saying that the exact quotes from what the Prime Minister or a Chief Minister or members of Parliament say in the legislatures are of crucial importance to the quality and credibility of a reporter's story. As writing fast is of utmost importance, it will really help if you learn shorthand. If the minister is talking about embryonic stem cells and you have never heard of these marvels of regenerative medicine, you can easily make a mistake in your report. Therefore, you must possess a comprehensive grasp of the language and an encyclopedic general knowledge so that you can perform your duties with confidence, which means you should be aware of pesticides, heart diseases, black holes, space travel, child mortality and such diverse topics to be able to make sense when they are discussed in the House. Covering debates is a very important part of your skill set as a political reporter. Here are some pointers to do so effectively. This may sound obvious, but political debates and discussions are usually long, and so you don't want to risk missing anything by assuming you can remember things. So get everything down on paper. You can also put check marks next to quotes or moments in the debate that you think you'll use in your story in your notes. Political stories are written on tight deadlines. So, it is good to have some background copy prepared before the debate begins. This can include basic information on the topic being debated, the members involved in the debate, and information about the subject of the debate. The backgrounder can be used in the bottom of the story, while the debate itself will fill up the top. As a reporter on a deadline, you can't afford to wait until the debate ends to start writing a story. So once you have a feel for how the debate is going, start writing. You may not know what your lead will be until the event ends, but at least you'll have the bulk of your story ready. Generally, your lead should sum up the debate's main points. It can also be based on the most important point which emerges during the parliamentary debate. Like, if you are covering a debate on the new rape bill, at the end of it, your lead could deal with how the rape bill got deferred as the parliament failed to reach consensus on the age of consent. In this section, we shall be talking in detail about writing a political story on the elections and the legislative assemblies. Basic journalism, as you very well know, is telling a story. It is like when you talk to a friend or someone in your family, you speak clearly and openly about something that has happened or about to happen. You also talk about what it means and why. In short, journalism is like an informative conversation, and a good story contains the answers to the questions who, how, what, where, when, and why. In political reporting too, these questions help define the basic content of a news story. For example, if you are reporting on elections, your story should definitely include the following information. Who is the candidate for which party in this area? What promises is the candidate making? How does the candidate intend to keep the promises? When does he expect to honor his promises? Who is paying for the candidate's campaign? How could that affect the candidate's decisions should they win? But to make this information more meaningful to voters, the story should also refer to how other candidates answer the same questions. It is not always possible to make every story equally balanced, but over a number of stories, there has to be a fair or representative balance. Political stories can be written in the inverted pyramid style. However, because political issues can usually be seen from a number of different viewpoints, political stories are more often complicated to write than a simple report of an event. You need to include factual details of any measure or decision, but also report the different opinions on the issue. Additionally, political reporters have the obligations of responsibility, accuracy, and accountability. We shall be talking in short on these important issues now. This means you should protect your sources when they prefer not to be named. Responsibility also means that you use only honest, legal methods to obtain the news, and you avoid reporting what has been reported elsewhere without checking the facts. Responsible reportage does not knowingly repeat inaccurate allegations and offensive speech without allowing the other side to comment or answer. Your stories must be accurate not only in spelling the candidate's name, but also in descriptions, quotes, and context, and in giving things their proper emphasis without exaggeration. If you do not describe people, places, and events accurately, you misinform them. Fair and balanced election coverage means individual stories contain points of views from different parties or candidates. But professional electoral journalists do not favor any candidate. They simply ask questions on behalf of the people, compare answers, present and explain the various points of views, and add background information and context so the public can understand all sides of issues. When you give information in a news story, you must reveal or attribute the source. For example, suppose Mr. X of the Y party says he will lower gas prices if elected. In the news report, it is important to say it is he, Mr. X, who said it, so readers, listeners and viewers will know the reporter did not make up the information, increasing accountability. If a source tells a journalist something significant and wants to remain anonymous, the journalist has a responsibility not to reveal the name of the source. It is this trust in journalist responsibility which enables the media to get information from sources that often can't be obtained anywhere else. Other than in brief direct quotes, journalists should use their own words to report a story. Part of the journalist's skill is translating long, complicated or evasive statements from candidates into simple language that readers, listeners and viewers of all levels of education can understand. A golden rule to follow is that you don't repeat when you don't understand or cannot explain more clearly. As in all news reporting, political journalists do not put their own opinions into election or parliamentary reporting. The public is depending on you to hear information on what is happening, not your judgment on whether you like the candidate or their ideas. Choose your words very carefully, as language you use can help build understanding or reinforce misperceptions and fear. This particularly applies during elections when political candidates get greater attention by making sometimes emotional statements. Reporters should try to avoid imprecise and accusatory words such as massacre, assassination and genocide, which inflame more than inform. If political candidates use these words, they should be directly attributed to the candidate and not just reported as facts. In their own reports, reporters should avoid descriptive words such as terrorized, brutalized or devastated, because those are the words of people on one side who see themselves as victims, and reporters do not take sides. Only quote someone else using such language. Also avoid putting labels on groups such as terrorist, fanatic, fundamentalist or extremist, because this amounts to the reporter taking a position, condemning the group. Like avoid using terms like Hindu fascist. But if political candidates use these words for groups, they should be directly attributed to the candidate and not just reported as facts. Here are some pointers about how you can write a good political story. One of your main tasks as a political journalist is to explain events and issues in a way your readers or listeners can understand. If you only report what happens or what is said, you will give your readers or listeners a fragmented picture of the world. They also need to know how and why things happen. Your stories must always put events and issues in context, showing how they affect people. As within any area of news, it is important that you know your readers or listeners. You can then adapt your news telling style to their general level of interest and understanding. For example, your readers may have little interest in debates in Parliament over transport policy. However, if the debate ends in a decision to increase bus fares by 20%, you must tell them this. When a politician or a political activist speaks just to appear good, you should treat what they say as personal advertising and not include that in your story. In today's program, we have explained in detail about the requirements for becoming a parliamentary reporter. We have also discussed about how the parliament functions, what are the duties of a legislative or parliamentary reporter, and how does he go about fulfilling those duties. We have also learned about breach of privilege and about writing bright, interesting stories on politics with a human face. That's all that we have for you for today. Thank you and goodbye.